Phil, that was really fascinating for me. Jennifer Hollis, thanatology. I really knew nothing about thanatology. I never heard of somebody actually coming in and doing music therapy for someone while they were in hospice in their final stages. But I think it's great. I think it's fascinating, and I found her, very articulate and interesting.
Yes, I did too. When I'm dying, I want her there.
Yeah, I was thinking of more like a five, a combo. Like you have a drummer, a couple of horns, maybe a little Latin. No, I mean we kid about it, but I don't know. I mean, I think it would be very different for different people.
Yeah,
But in that, I'm sure she provides a tremendous service, easing people, and there's something about. And I think of the harp. You think of sacred music, and you
right.
brought that up. You said, why the harp, and she said it doesn't have to be the harp, but I can't imagine somebody coming in with a tuba or bongo drums or whatever.
Or
So I think
plugging
there's,
in,
yeah,
you'd probably want it acoustic in some
yeah,
way.
piano, violin. There's certain instruments, as beautiful
Cello
as,
would be nice.
yeah, horn. Just a little, the volume might be too much, or a muted horn, maybe. Who knows? And
Yeah,
I wonder. I'd be curious to know people that are musicians if in the final stages of their life they desire music. And I guess there's two things. One is what it does for the person that is in their final stages, and often the person isn't totally alert and they drift in and out of sleep and they may be medicated. But so much of it is also for the family and friends
yeah, yeah.
that are with the person to settle them down. And I would think also after the person passes, it would be very profound. And imagine what it'd be like having that job, dealing with that every day. I guess hospice workers, I mean, they do the same thing. Must have a big
Yeah.
impact on you.
Yeah, well, but hospice workers are, of course, much more hands-on
Right.
and communicating verbally and emotionally with the patients and everything. It's a different thing, but it must be tremendously transformative. I can just imagine. I've spoken to hospice workers and hospital chaplains, and they always talk about how transformative it is and how spiritually enriching it is to be of service at those times of a person's life, and the watching what happens to people and so forth. I'd be curious to know about the the kind of spiritual experiences the the patients might have.
Hmm.
Um, if you're in the right mood and in the right place and the right music is played, it can be incredibly more than just moving. It can be transcendent.
Right.
People, you transcend. You get out of your ego, and your awareness shifts in a dramatic way sometimes in the presence of music. So at a time like that,
Right.
you would think, my God, it could be sublime to the point of ecstasy.
Right.
It could be transcendent. It could evoke inner experiences that the person may never have had before.
Hmm.
Or deepen experiences they already have. I can really see where it could be tremendously important.
Yeah, no, I mean, you hear, music took me to another place by listening to it, and I'm sure it has an impact and effect on the neurophysiology of what's going on, and especially at times like that. I'd be curious, Phil, how different cultures deal with the final stages of in a person's life, and if there is music involved, especially like Native Americans, indigenous peoples. Is that part of it? What do they do? Because usually, they're very traditions that carry on over generations. And in Indian culture and Hindu culture, is there? I'm wondering. There are healing mantras
Yeah.
and ragas that are done. I wonder if there is music played in the final stages of someone's life.
That's a very good question, and I would love to ask somebody about that. What is done in traditional cultures? I'm guessing if there is, chanting would be involved because
Hmm.
the invocation of sound, excuse me, sound verbally in form of mantras is such a
Hmm.
deeply embedded part of the Hindu culture and the Buddhist culture that. I, I don't even know if instrumentation is part of the picture or just,
Right.
but it would seem logical that there would at least be expert chanting. The only time I ever had any experience like it was after someone died and
Hmm.
chanting was done. Now that's an interesting question we might have asked Jennifer. Um, does the music stop when the person dies?
That's a very good
Because
question. Yeah.
if you think there's an afterlife, or even if you don't and the patient does think there's an afterlife, is there value in helping the soul make a
Right.
transition?
Right. I would think that from what she said, she might have said it would be up to the family how they reacted. The
Hmm.
other thing is, I'm wondering. We had a Buddhist monk on recently, and it seems like the chanting is involved in every aspect of a monk's life. And I'm wondering when a monk in a monastery who's been there their life, when their life comes to an end, do the I would think they are with other monks, and I would think that there's chanting involved. I don't know. I know in Christian tradition, in Catholicism, they come and give last rites, but I don't know of any singing or anything that's involved. But
Well,
maybe
you
it is
should
in the
suggest
tradition.
it to the Pope.
Yeah, he's open to everything new now, so who knows?
I mean, when
Yeah,
you think of some of the incredibly beautiful Gregorian chants,
right.
and that's what should be done.
Right, right. Yeah, no, it's and she also mentioned that music is available in CD form or electronically online, and I'm wondering, if specific music has been made. I'm gonna let's research it because I mean I know there's specific ragas and all that are done for healing and and maybe those are the ragas that are being played in
Yeah,
Hindu tradition
I
uh,
I
to
don't know,
to.
or maybe it's not ragas. Maybe it's
Mhm.
other kinds of chanting. I have no. It's a good question. We'll get somebody on the show
Yeah.
who might be able to address
Some
some of that.
disc jockey that has an AM station somewhere. So they specialize in. You have to kid about it. I mean, but it's something that everybody deals with, uh,
Yeah,
and and uh, and whatever brings comfort and eases the pain, and also and it also reminds us how what a deep impact music has, sound has on spirituality and one's uh, growth in spirituality and really creating a deeply spiritual environment.
yeah, and any of us who have been to either as a patient or a visitor in a hospital knows the opposite,
Right.
how awful the noise can be.
Yeah.
I mean, there is nothing healing about
Right.
the noisy environment in a hospital with if I were a philanthropist, I would purchase earphones for every patient in every
Right.
hospital
Right.
so people could turn on their televisions or radios and not disturb everybody
Right.
else.
Right.
And but hospitals can be noisy, and when you think of how different it would be to have a harp being played or
Right.
soothing music
Right.
being played to counteract that, just the difference between exacerbating bad health and healing it.
Right, and the lights are always on. I remember years ago when my daughter was young, I would take my daughter and a bunch of her friends who were like all playing the piano or some instrument, and we go to around Christmas time, go over to the senior, in residence facility and play them some music. And the thought I had at the time is if they just had some live plants here and maybe some lovely music and some the vibe was just so institutional and music would have a huge impact. Just playing some classical or some gentle music all the time, I would think it would elevate people's moods. But and like you said, hospitals, it's even worse. It's noisy and chaotic, and it's very difficult for a person to rest or feel any peacefulness.
Hmm. Yep.
Well,
And so I think it's a wonderful new profession that, people should know about. It's fascinating. There's only 100 music thanatologists in the country, but as she said, there's other people who are music therapists and other ways to
hmm
avail oneself of
right.
the healing power of music.
And just mention again the book by Jennifer L. Hollis, Music at the End of Life, Easing the Pain and Preparing the Passage. Well, that was fascinating, and I think we really should do some follow-up and be an interesting theme to see how different spiritual traditions deal with that period of transition.
Yeah, we should look into having a theme show or a
Uh-huh.
series.
Great. All right. Until next
Okay,
time.
next time.
Adios. Bye. Bye.